As we return to our conversation with the television producer, longtime political activist Norman Lear, tonight PBS will premiere the American Masters documentary, Norman Lear, Just Another Version of You, the first documentary about the 94-year-old legend who, because of his work, landed on Richard Nixon's enemies list. I asked Norman Lear how he ended up there.
I got lucky. I think I just got lucky. Well, he's on tape. You know, I think we used the tape in the American Masters documentary, where he is talking about with Haldeman in his office. He's talking about that show that makes fun of a good man. Those were his words. And he was talking about that Archie Bunker, though you didn't remember the name, character. And he was talking about we were lauding homosexuality, and homosexuality brought down the Greek,
Empire.
It was Nixon at his Trumpish.
So you have B. Arthur playing Maude.
Yes.
You have Carol O'Connor and Gene Stapleton, this astounding duo. Talk about them as people and your work with them. Carol O'Connor, very much, to say the least, the absolute opposite of Archie Bunker. And Irish, how could he
Catholic,
tolerate
liberal.
Doing this?
He must have had a very difficult time in two ways. One, as an intellect, he was speaking like somebody, the antithesis of a smart man, let alone an intellect. And he didn't like most of the scripts, and the best example of it was, we have it in the American Masters documentary, a story that took place entirely in an elevator, a half hour in an elevator, stuck between floors with a Hispanic woman who was about to give birth and who, in the fearful moment of a stuck elevator, did give birth. And I wanted to see that baby born on Archie's face. I just was in love with that from the moment that it dawned on us to do something like that.
Of course, he's turning away at the beginning, turning away. He doesn't want this to happen. He's telling her, just wait, wait.
Yes, because she's Hispanic, he's saying, stop-o, hold-o. But when it finally happened, the expression on Archie's face when he hears the baby cry, first he's alarmed the baby isn't crying, then the baby cries.
Make that baby cry, and you see him out of the corner of his eye starting to look.
And then he says, it's a boy. And, I don't know, it's golden.
Good Times and the Jeffersons.
Yeah.
Talk about the Black Panthers coming to visit and this show, Good Times.
Well, the Panthers came simply to say, the only black man on television with a family has to work 2 and sometimes 3 jobs. Can't you? It wasn't anything like can't you. They just damned us because, but what came out of that was we have the Jeffersons next door. We've only just found what's-his-face to play George Jefferson. And I knew we were going to have something great, and we decided as a result of that, we'll have him move on up. We don't have to do a black family. We'll do one that, he was in the cleaning and dyeing business. Now suddenly he'll have 3 or 4 stores, and he's moved on up.
Sherman Hemsley played.
Sherman Hemsley, yeah. And it was Janae Dubois, who played the neighbor on the show, who came up with the song Moving On Up, which is kind of an anthem. I hear it everywhere now. You
did a lot of television. You changed television. But you also started the advocacy group People for the American Way. I dare say if you were starting new organizations now, given this presidential election year, you might be doing the very same thing. But talk about what is People for the American Way and why you moved away from TV for that for a while.
Well, in 1980, or 79 and a half, I became very aware of the of the amount of TV evangelicals proliferating on the tube. You know, Jerry Falwell in the Moral Majority, and Pat Robertson, who even ran for president for a while, and Jimmy Swaggart and so forth, and mixing politics and religion. And I had learned in civics class, the crime of the moment in education for me is they don't teach civics anymore. But when I was a boy, I learned to love my Declaration of Independence, and I underlined my Constitution and my Bill of Rights. Because they were the protections Americans needed in a free society where everybody is equal under the law. And so I was dedicated to that as a result of those civics classes and learning when my father was sent away from Father Coughlin, who proliferated on radio and hated Jews and viciously anti-Semitic, viciously anti-FDR. And
extreme. I mean, he was a real powerhouse on radio.
Yes, a powerhouse, and he had raised anti-Semitism, you know, to an enormous height. But I had my civics class, which taught me I was protected by the documents that came from our founding fathers. I underline the word fathers because mine was away. I think that's the time I fell in love with founding fathers, looking, needing, wishing for a father.
I just watched another documentary that you're in, that you were the reporter for, and that's America Divided series. And I wanted to play for a moment America Divided, where you are the correspondent investigating gentrification and displacement here in New York City, then going undercover to expose racial discrimination in housing. In this clip, you speak with the New York Times investigative journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones.
And then you have this myth that if a lot of black people move into a neighborhood, the property values go down. That's actually true. It's true, though, because of the way the federal government rated integrated neighborhoods. But we've come to believe it's true because black people just don't keep up their properties. So you see the way that a reality can be fueled by a myth.
Reality can be fueled by a myth.
Yes, absolutely.
And is our government doing anything about that?
Well, we have fair housing laws now. We don't have fair housing yet. I don't think we realized how much effort went into creating segregation. We had cooperation from individual homeowners all the way up to the federal government to reorder our society in a way that harmed Black Americans and helped white Americans. So you have to break it up. You have to do what you did to create it.
So that's the New York Times investigative journalist, New York Times Magazine investigative journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones. You do an astounding job in this episode of America Divided that's now on Epix. You came home, in a sense. You lived here in your life in New York. When were you here?
I was here when my father got out of prison. We came to New York. We lived here for about 2.5 years. I went to Weaver High School. No, that was in Hartford. I went to Tilden High School.
Samuel Tilden High School.
Yes, Samuel Tilden High School.
And here you're exposing what the Black Lives Matter movement talks about a lot. I mean, they're talking about, you know, African Americans killed by police officers, but structural racism in our society. And housing is a crucial part of that, how segregated we are. New York, like the third most segregated major city in this country.
Well, it's one thing to read about it and understand what's going on. It's quite another thing to go into it. To sit in a lobby of a building with 14 or so tenants, family representatives, who were paying $600 are now paying $1,900 or something crazy figures, escalated rentals. And they still were wanted out because of gentrification. And so because they had long leases, the landlord had chosen to fix, in quotes, these steps, this wall, that thing, all to cause dust, raised debris, and so forth. And people were getting sick, literally getting sick of it. And I'm sitting with these families, and I mean, the wonder is that I raided my refrigerator last night and had a good night's sleep. How do we human beings live with that?
And you actually, undercover, go in to try to get an apartment after an African-American actor who is deeply affected by this, goes in and they say, that apartment we advertised, it's not available. And you go in. There was
an apartment and a studio apartment. There were 2 apartments for me, and there was nothing for him. 1 day later.
And you go in 1 day later. How did you feel about this? This is not
I felt terrible.
Back then, this is now.
I do not understand how I can feel the way I feel, do what I do, but it is nothing compared to what has to be done. I don't know why I'm not out on the streets. I don't know why I haven't been arrested yet. I don't know why enough is not enough.
What do you still want to accomplish, Norman Lear?
Another hour and a half talking to you.
Well, that would be a pleasure, but I think there is a person who's waiting to take you out right away. But as you take on all these issues, what gives you hope?
I don't know. Congenitally, I don't want to wake up any morning without hope. I mean, that's where I see hope in your face. I see hope in the person who greeted me coming in. I don't wake up in the morning without hope.
Norman Lear, veteran legendary television and film producer, political social activist, philanthropist. The new PBS American Masters documentary premiering tonight is called Norman Lear, Just Another Version of You, chronicling his life and the creation of the hit shows All in the Family, Good Times, Maude, Sanford and Sons, and The Jeffersons. Norman Lear is founder of several nonprofits, including People for the American Way. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. That does it for our broadcast.